Welcome to a Whole Lot of Wolves special. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
I'm Paul LePage.
And it's been a few weeks since our last end of the season special, which had a big guest roundtable in the wake of Nuno's departure. Name that was mentioned then was Bruno Lage to be the next potential manager. And lo and behold, that's who it turned out to be. It happened yesterday as we're recording this right now. So he may not be a household name to many of us, which is why we realized we need to bring in our resident expert for Portuguese soccer in the Portuguese league. And that's Mr. John Batista. How's it going, John?
It's going well. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back. It was a no-brainer to bring you back because you know all about the Portuguese league. First, we have to say, are we saying it right? Because he said it was large without the R. Is that correct? So it's Lage?
Yeah. Hey, you said it. I couldn't have said it better myself. Bruno Lage.
Okay, Lage. Hey, we're getting it right, Paul.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to call him Bruno from here on out, though. I'm not going to lie. So, John, tell us about his backgrounds and his accomplishments thus far.
Yeah, so Bruno Lage is an interesting guy. I didn't really know much about him until he was promoted to the senior coach at Benfica, but he has about a decade of experience coaching. I think he's coached almost every age group at Benfica for their youth team. So his experience really is with the youth teams. He pretty much replaced a coach at Benfica, this guy named Rui Victoria. So he replaced him, wasn't doing well. Benfica wasn't doing well in that season as well. It was looking like Porto was going to take the title. They bring on Bruno Lage, which I think at the time was just a temporary replacement. They bring him on. This guy ends up winning the title in his first season. Now, again, I'm going to say João Felix, which is obviously a $126 million man, that move that kind of stunned everyone. That guy, João Felix, got promoted to the A team because of Bruno Lage. So Bruno Lage came on and started bringing some players from the youth team that he had experience with. Another name that everyone knows, Ruben Dias, got an opportunity to play for the Benfica senior team because of Bruno Lage. So Bruno Lage, I think he's really good at identifying talent, youth. I think that's something that he's going to bring to the table for the Wolves. He's definitely going to be working with the youth team. He's definitely going to give opportunities to some of the younger players. He won his first year at Benfica. He won the second year. During that summer, they sold a lot of good players. They sold João Felix. They sold a bunch of other players, and they didn't really buy anyone. So Benfica didn't really buy anyone. Second season, he didn't do too well. I don't think it was because of him. I think it was because the club didn't really buy anyone, and he was dismissed. Also, Benfica had elections coming up. It was political as well. And I know that he's had experience. I think he's coached Sheffield as an assistant as well, another team in the UK. So Bruno Lage, look, he's not the most experienced guy, but he has a lot of potential for sure.
Do you feel like those stints that he had, I think it was Swansea City as an assistant, do you think that's helpful for a coach like him to come in and at least have experience coaching in England?
100%. And also, let's put aside just coaching the players. Let's think about, is this guy going to be happy living in the UK? Obviously, we always forget about the human side of it. We expect like people to just move and transition like it's super easy. But the fact that he's lived in the UK before, I think that's definitely pretty solid. I think that definitely helps. And yeah, of course, he's worked with English players. I actually don't know how well he can speak English. That's something that I don't know.
Interesting.
I assume that he can speak English, though. I don't know.
It was a 3-year body of work across Sheffield Wednesday and Swansea. So I think language-wise, that certainly stands him in good stead. And just his interviews from yesterday was certainly easy enough to listen to as an English speaker that you understand what was coming across. So, yeah, while he might not have the nuances, I think he's at a level, if not a little better, probably than Nuno was. So I think he's pretty fair set when it comes to all of that. And I think it is a big deal that 3 years is a lengthy time, and that experience is good because it's reported that Nuno never moved full time. So he was always in rented accommodation. His family never moved. It was always a job that he'd do during the season and then go back. And I think there's some things along the lines of Neves is in a similar position, that he's moved over. His immediate family's here, but they rent accommodation. obviously with the pandemic going on and his last baby, they had to go back to Portugal for all of that. So they had the family structure. So if he's had those 3 years, I think that's going to certainly fair him. And he knows the country, he knows the lay of the land. Maybe it gives him somewhat more experience when it comes to like the minute details of playing Stoke on a cold Tuesday night. If we get them in the League Cup, maybe he favours those types of competitions a little more. But we don't know. It's an unknown as far as that goes. But I think it will give him he'll have a very broad range of knowledge when it comes to our leagues for sure, and maybe that helps him uncover a gem or two from the Championship or below, even that it might have caught his eye during his previous time here.
Yeah. I also will say maybe this will make Wolves fans happy. He is attack minded. He's an attack minded coach. He's not going to be, I don't expect him to go in defensively. Obviously it's the EPL, you play against tough teams, but he's an attack minded coach. In his first season coaching Benfica's senior team, he broke the league points record and he also broke the goal scored record. So he's an attacking minded coach.
There's been a fair bit mentioned already, John, and I know a lot of the stats guys and the analysts on the Twitter accounts that I follow have really honed in on that attacking mindset and his very somewhat unique formation, that it's a 4-4-2 that he played exclusively at Benfica, but still a very attacking one, and 2 onrushing fullbacks, but 2 more holding midfield players. So you could have a 4 and a 6 and all of that. So do you think there's a natural transition from that game to the EPL, or would he tinker with that in some way just to be sure that they're not picked apart defensively?
Again, yeah, it's going to be tough. I think that he's absolutely going to have to make changes. I don't know because the Portuguese league is different. The Portuguese league isn't competitive, to be honest. And you play a lot against a lot of teams that just park the bus. It's definitely going to be a different competition, and he's probably going to have to change his strategy. But I do know that he likes to play out wide, and we all know that Wolves have plenty of options on the out wide. Adama Traore, Pedro Neto when he recovers. I think he's going to make changes to his strategy for sure, but I still expect him to be attack minded. But yeah, I don't know if that 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1, however you want to put it, I don't know if that'll hold up when he gets to the Wolves or when he starts coaching games.
That's been the one thing I've found very interesting is everybody's like, oh, he's going to come in and run a 4-4-2 like he did at Benfica. No, a good manager's going to run a system that fits his players, not the other way around. Okay, yeah, he may recruit a few guys for his system, but he can't turn over the whole roster with the way the economics are right now. So I'm glad to hear you saying something along the same lines as he's not like stuck doing the 4-4-2. Like he's going to do whatever makes the most sense. Based on that info, what do you see out of the existing squad that's a fit for him? You mentioned Adama and Pedro Neto.
I think Ruben Neves will fit well as well. I think Bruno Lage definitely prefers technical players in the midfield. Let's be honest, elephant in the room here, he speaks Portuguese. And there are a lot of Portuguese players in the world. But that right there, that definitely a plus. I think it's interesting. That was something that I think a lot of us were wondering. Nuno's out, but there's a lot of Portuguese players here. Are we going to bring in another Portuguese coach? And it looks like the Wolves have done that. Yeah, I think he's going to be able to work with the team. I definitely do think that. I also think I'm hoping that Vitinha will shine under him.
I know that's your boy.
That's your boy. Guy, man. And I've been watching Portugal U21, the Euro. We lost in the final, but anyway, Vitinha is phenomenal. I'm so upset that he wasn't able to stay at Porto for longer, but I think that he will shine. I think Bruno Lage will give him an opportunity, and I think he will do well. Yeah.
If it is that 4-4-2 or 4-1-1, where would Vitinha fit in that formation, do you think?
Yeah, Vitinha's a cam, but he needs that freedom, right? You can't lock him into a position. I think he moves around, but he's definitely going to be in the center of the pitch behind the striker. I know that at Benfica, Bruno Lage, it wasn't always a 4-4-2 fix. Sometimes it was a 4-4-1-1 with João Felix playing behind the striker. I forget who the striker at the time was, but João Felix was given that freedom, that cam role. So it wasn't even center forward role. That's what it was. I think Vitinha could do that, but Vitinha plays well in the middle. I think it's going to be in a position in the midfield that gives him freedom to push forward because he can dribble and he's definitely very creative.
Maybe you can help us out. Is that Vitina, was that deal an obligation or an option to buy? Because I've seen both ways numerous times here, and I don't think anybody really knows what the deal is and what his real price tag is.
I don't. I think same experience as you. I saw even using some of the Portuguese sources I've seen, it's either an option or it's an obligation to buy. I want to say it's an obligation to buy. That's what I would go ahead and say. Yeah, I think it's an obligation to buy.
He seemed to talk about that in the post-match interviews or reports from that under-21 tournament. But you never know with those, if it was translated from Portuguese to English, how naturally that translates, if it's talking the same language in terms of specific word. I think we'll see that play out pretty shortly, I should think, in terms of those loan players and whether they're staying or not.
Who do you think are the guys on the outs, John?
I got to say, I don't know. I'm not sure and the reason why is because, again, as you mentioned before, I don't know if Wolves are going to go and spend a whole lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who's going to be out. It's tough to say with the economic situation that the clubs are in.
Paul, how would you feel about that?
I think what John said was pretty telling when you think about ins and outs and folks that you want to see. Now that this news is fully broken and we get an understanding of formations and setup and how players fit, I think now I'd be more invested in building a team around Neves and having Adama as the sacrificial lamb, where
we can't be friends anymore, Paul.
Yeah,
we can't be friends anymore.
Previously, it was the opposite, where I felt that Neves if Neves goes to Man City, Liverpool, Juve, whoever, he's going to be quality, but can you replace him? Possibly. But Adama is just that uniqueness that he's irreplaceable as the type of player that he is when he's on form, when he's in a rich vein. So now I'm thinking, look at Neves, sacrifice Adama. Worst case scenario is it's both of them, and suddenly Vitinha comes the main man in midfield as one of those two that he likes to play. But if that's the case, they've got to get an absolute beast alongside him that fits into what Bruno wants to play and contributes in the midfield, because whatever way that we line up in the Premier League, that centre of the park is crucial, and we've been found out every season really at some stage our midfield's been overrun based on what the opposition have put in against us. So I think regardless of what happens, that needs to be a big concentration for him from the very start.
See, I don't feel like they'd get rid of Adama just yet, though, because everything I've heard is an attacking coach. It would make more sense to keep him around one more season and see how he does in a system like this. He could be a key guy to build around, or his value could go up. So that's and you're mentioning right there about the midfield. That's why I still think Neves is going to be the guy that's going, and I think there is a lot of interest by Arsenal right now.
Yeah, Adama. Here's the thing about Adama for me, I like the guy, but under a defensive-minded coach, he's a counter-attacking player. Does Adama do well when the opposition is parked or when the opposition is defending really well? Does he? Sometimes, yes. And again, it's Adama. Like he's a brilliant player. But the question is, Wolves need money, right? Mm-hmm. That's the big thing here. If in an ideal world where Wolves don't need money and everything's good financially, then you keep Adama. No break. Yeah. But that's not the situation that Wolves are in. So you have to ask yourself, how useful will Adama be in this new formation? Again, Bruno Lage could all of a sudden change now. Is he going to be defensive? Because it is the EPL. So there could be the chance that maybe he's not as attack-minded as he was in Portugal. But I still feel like Adama did extremely well in there because he was a counter. He was participating in attacking play. And that's not the Benfica under Bruno Lage, Benfica did not play counter-attacking football. They were the ones dominating. But Portuguese league, it's very different, so it's hard to say.
Do you think he could play beside Raul in a 4-4-2?
Adama?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a floater, because that's what I'm still thinking when I look at the roster. And I'm thinking, like, he might be a guy that you have up there with Raul, and right beside him, maybe playing a little bit back and floating to either side would be Adama. That would go with our boy Ryan Gray, who's told us he feels Adama could play a 10 role. It wouldn't necessarily be a 10 role, but I think it would be interesting in that system.
Yeah, and Adama's made some good passes, don't get me wrong, but he's obviously not a creative midfielder in terms of, like, he can be creative in his own way, but still, he's very fast. And he can move around very quickly. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe he could work in that position. I'm also curious to see what happens with Fabio Silva.
Yeah.
Under Lage. So there's some possibility here. What is the situation with Raul Jimenez?
He should. The latest reports we got were he should be back for the start of next season. They told Mexico hands off for this summer. So he's staying back in training. I think it should be good. I think it's going to be a mental hurdle more than anything.
Josh and I heard a little peek behind the curtain yesterday, actually, that we won't go into right now, but all we can say is the club are very much geared towards his return and everything that goes with it. So I think the thinking there is that it'll be all systems go come the new season.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't see under Lage. I will say this then. If that's the case, I don't see Fabio Silva playing with Raul Jimenez.
Yeah.
Because whoever that guy is behind, like Vitinha and João Felix, for example, they do have different qualities, but I also see some similarities there. And so I can actually see Vitinha behind him. And as you mentioned, Josh, same goes for Adama. Now that you bring it up, that is a good point. Yeah, I can see that too.
So you're saying it'd be Raul and another rather than Raul and Fabio, or it's going to be Fabio and another?
Yeah.
Are they competing for the same position?
I don't see two strikers, two in the box strikers. They're true number nines, and I don't see two true number nines starting in an 11 and in a formation under Lage. No.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking the more I thought about it. And that could be Neto could feel that role as well and maybe put Adama on the right. It just, to me, I looked at it and I was like, if they're really wanting attacking, Adama's a guy I'd like to build around. And it again gets into, we've been saying it all along, probably one of him or Neves is going to go. And I think there are definitely two camps that are forming. Hopefully they both don't go, because I don't think we can afford to lose both of them. Paul, you wanted to talk about some possible incomings, huh?
You get excited, don't you, that it's a new man and who's he worked with previously, and we're not really going to know till he gets on the training ground and we start to see an idea of formations and what team's going to appear. I'm going to be fascinated up to that point. When it comes to these incomings, that's going to tell a lot of clues, I think, in terms of how we're going to shape up. And crucially, I think the first pre-season friendly, that typically friendlies are a total write-off and no one gives them any attention. When it was Nuno's first one and he brought out a three at the back and it was Cody and as a sweeper, everyone's mind was blown, and that turned into the standard. So I think that's going to be pretty crucial whenever we come around to pre-season, and that first pre-season game is going to have a big spotlight on it. But I think I'm excited with the potential incomings. Let's put aside the fact that we may have to raise funds by a departure, but
we'll get to that.
In some respects, not a lot's changed since the end of the last season. We still need a dominant centre back. We still need a dominant midfielder. I think Moutinho's gone, like as not in terms of playing, but I think he's had his final game for the club, in that he'll probably go back to Portugal and have a season or two, still probably play Champions League football and look quality, but have less games and less pressure on him minutes wise that way. So I think Moutinho's gone. Looks like Patricio's gone. Already you've got that saving off the wage bill, brings the average age down some way, but that doesn't get away from the fact that we need that centre back, need a centre midfielder, and we probably need a forward or two on this system, however it transpires. So yeah,
let's hear some names, Paul. Who you got?
I'm going back to Renato Sanchez.
He's on my list. He's on my list too.
That would be a good signing. I don't know. I gotta say, I'm not sure. That might be expensive. He might be expensive.
But Lille are in tragic financial difficulties, so
Are
that's the plus side there. That I think that the French league is showing the most value this summer for the players that are there that have potential, because I think the league lost their TV deal and there's a bunch that are close to the wall going out of business. So even though they won the league, I think he could be available at the right price. So I think he's one of my midfield go-tos, not necessarily because he may not be a centre mid, as fact he's got some flexibility to play depending on this system. So he's one for me. At centre back, I haven't really delved into too much. That will be an interesting one if he's got a general that he's going to go to from his Benfica time, or if he's had someone who came through the ranks of Benfica who's moved overseas, or there's someone that he can call on that he's had experience with previously. So that'll be interesting. And then I think we don't get away from the Portuguese connection and Trincao as well, that I think can come in and do fill one or two roles as a forward, either in that 10 or out wide. Yeah, that's a couple, one that I'm unsure of, but that's where I'd be looking at.
You want to hear my wish list here?
Go for it.
Okay, so I have Sanchez. I think we're on the same boat. Which, John, what would you think his value is? I looked this up. Don't cheat, okay? What would you think would be the price tag in pounds that would get a deal done for him? And then I'll tell you what his market value is, because you may be surprised.
All right, pounds?
Uh-huh.
Let's see, Lil just won the title with him.
Or euros, if euros is more comfortable with you.
Yeah, I'll use euros. 30 to 40 million.
Well, that's a bit. You got to narrow it down some there.
All right, you know what?
35.
Paul said that they're in a tragic financial situation, which is a huge hint. I'm gonna go with 30 million euros.
I'd say that's about par as well. Yeah.
30 million euros.
High 20s pounds. Yeah.
You know what he is worth euros wise is 27 million euros. That's a little over 23 million pounds. So I was a little surprised. It seemed like I thought that might have been a little bit of a higher price, but that's his current value. Now that is the highest value he's been.
He's well, Bayern bought him for a lot more though, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think Bayern bought him for 40, 50 million. I think. Don't quote me on that.
There's a couple other guys I have on here. Guedes, of course.
Oh.
I think that one's going to get done.
I've been dying for him to leave Valencia. I don't even know why he's still there. He's a great player. He got called up again. He was decisive in winning the Nations Cup for Portugal because he scored a goal in the final. Guedes fast. He's a really good player. He's one of my favorite players, honestly. He doesn't get a lot of attention though. Not recently.
I think that's where we've got the whole dynamic here of Rafa Mir and how that factors into it, and might not be in this deal, but it might factor into it as well that Vinagre's done well as well. So how does his value if we sell him or potential swaps? I think there's going to be a lot of moving parts to these transfers to keep financial fair play sweet and look after everyone's bottom lines in this current climate. I think there's going to be some creative accountancy.
I also think they should revisit Jesus Corona, see if he's available.
Yeah, he's on the transfer market. We have a couple players on the transfer market that we're trying to get rid of. So we have also, there is another player too, but I don't know if his name is Sergio Oliveira. He scored, and I'll just throw out a highlight from this year. He was named team of the season, I think, for Champions League. But he got some credit. He scored a free kick from far out to eliminate Juventus from the Champions League. But Sergio Oliveira, he's been like perfect this year. And this guy started, I think I watched, it was years back when I saw his first game for Porto's professional team. And it's crazy to see how he's blossomed since then. But so, yeah, there's him. Yeah, Jesus Corona is also on the transfer market. But again, it depends on Bruno Lage. Guedes is a great choice. In terms of players that Bruno Lage has worked with in the past, you guys are all familiar with Jetson, who was on. I'm not a fan of him. I wouldn't want to see him on Wolves. There is a possibility that he could go. Florentino, Jota. There's a player called Jota. He's like a winger. He's actually really good. He did really well in the U21. I don't know why he didn't start in the final. So there are some players that Lage promoted from the youth team at Benfica to the senior team that maybe he might call on. So should be interesting.
I tell you what, Jesus Corona played the other night for Team Mexico against Team USA, and he was unstoppable. And he was playing at left wing, which isn't even normally where he plays. What do you think his price tag is? I
think Porto needs money. I think the president came out and straight up admit that, hey, we're not going to be signing a lot of players. And he's had his time. He's been at Porto for a while. So I would have to say 20 to 30 million. I would say more if it was last year, but I think at this point, his contract's running down. I think he only has a couple years in his contract.
If they can get him for 20 million euros, my goodness.
Do you think he could come in offensively, or could he fill a role as that attacking right back in a 4-4-2 under Lage? No.
Back then when we had these conversations, I would have said maybe. But
maybe wing back, yeah.
But at this point, I don't. He's played that role for Porto because he was sacrificed. He was taking a loss for the team. He's helping out the team, but I don't think that's where he wants to play, and I don't think he'll go to a new club for a role like that. No.
Got you.
Interesting.
That extra option if there is a situation with the right back, right?
Yeah. And of course, my dream signing is, guess who, Paul? Weston McKennie.
Weston, yeah. Now he had a good game on Sunday night as well. So
let me tell you what. I mean, here's the deal. If Wolves have obviously captured a lot of the Mexico market, they've captured a lot of the Portugal market. If they want to make an impact in the U.S. market, you can't get Pulisic. He's staying at Chelsea. There's only two guys really that you can go after, and that's Weston McKennie or Zach Steffen that are going to move the needle. I know we were talking to somebody, Paul, that was mentioning, does Owen Odasoe help? No. People don't even know who Owen is that are Team USA guys. So Weston's the guy. In Juventus, they're apparently still willing to listen. It would probably cost a lot. It would involve, I think the only way to get him was you'd have to sell Neves and use a lot of those funds toward McKennie, but that's my dream.
I think the other potential market is the Asian one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's been mooted this week. And again, when you start talking about swap deals and looking at Spain, and there we've got Lee Kangin, that's potential that I think could have a position in that 10, that cam, that advanced midfielder. And if there's a player swap there with Rafa Mir, that could work out pretty well for all parties. So I think they're smart enough to see the potential of a sign-in, and not only what they can do on the pitch, but also that revenue that it drives overseas as well.
So I mentioned the little game I had for you guys, and you can't cheat. Okay, no cheating. I looked up a lot of these guys, what their value is on the market, and we're going to play Let's Make a Deal. I'm going to tell you a player and name the price that a team may offer, and you have to tell me yes or no if that's too low, and then I'll tell you what their real value is. So you ready?
Okay.
We'll start off with an easy one, Paul. Ruben Neves, 35 million pounds.
I'm not selling unless it's 40 for Neves. Yeah.
How about you, John?
Yeah, I'm with Paul here. Yeah, it's a no for me. No.
That's what I was thinking too. Would you believe his value right now is listed at 31.78 million pounds? It's like selling low right now if you look at his value chart.
Yeah, it's a tricky for him. It's a really tricky season that a lot of that gets based off. So I think that undervalues him based on the collective of what he adds to the team. And you got to remember that that's in a Wolves side that underachieved last season as well. I'll say it repeatedly: stick him in a Man City or a Liverpool side or any of those teams, I think he'd absolutely thrive and make that 35-40 million a mockery, really.
I agree.
Agreed. And also don't forget, if he gets good game time and has a successful Euro campaign, then that number will.
Yeah. That's why I hope they've I hope now that they've got Lage that there's some players ready to go, because Guedes could have a breakout Euros and suddenly everyone slept on him and his value's gone up by 15 million, and damn, we
saw that with Maitland-Niles just with the freaking plate. Yeah.
Another name that hasn't been mentioned is Andre Silva. He's one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of him?
He wouldn't be. It would be interesting. It would probably be a cheaper alternative.
Then I don't know how it fits in with Fabio Silva being on the team. Does he get loaned out? Because then if you bring in Andre Silva and you have Raul Jimenez that's healthy, I don't know how that would work out. But Silva, he's a really good player. He's an interesting guy, and he's also been called up. And him and Guedes, I will say this, get some favoritism from the coach, their quality. So Guedes could, in fact, actually place and get some game time and scores a couple goals or even one goal, and his number goes up.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, here's another name for you. I'm going to offer you 17 million pounds for Daniel Podence. Deal or no deal?
Oh, that's a good one. I've been thinking about this, that we get caught up in all these potential players incoming and everything, but whenever there's a new coach, there's always some on the existing staff that surprise. Like under Nuno, everyone thought Doherty was finished, Cody was finished, Ryan Bennett had come in as this free transfer that everyone thought was just a body to make up the numbers. All of those have had a great career under Nuno. So I think my two, I'm gonna say no on Podence. It's my pick, and I'm totally looking in the crystal ball here, but it's my two picks that are gonna thrive under the new coach are Podence and Dendoncker.
Oh, Dendonker's coming up next. How about you, John? 17 million for Podence? Deal or no?
I gotta go with no deal.
Wow. See, I thought I might be able to tempt you guys with that. His market value, by the way, is 19.42 million pounds. So a little bit higher than I thought.
Yeah,
I just wonder physically if he can compete in the EPL. That's my concern with him. Okay, Den Donker, I'll give you 20 million pounds. I see. I made these tough for you.
I'll take that.
You'll take 20 million. How about you, Paul?
I just said he could thrive, but if there's a ready-made replacement that offers better value, I'd probably take 20. But I don't know. Even I'm saying thrive, I still look at Dendoncker. Maybe it's with the gold tinted spectacles on and Nuno's love of versatility, but I just think of having that body there that can play in midfield, can play at centre back at a push. If he's just given that sitting brief that you don't have to do anything and be one of those big guys as the two, holding midfielders. He's going to start for Belgium, who's one of the favourites for the Euro. So there's that at the back of my mind. There's that lineup when we played Brighton and there was only Kilman that was over 6 foot. So that all of that factors into it as well. I'm still holding on to he's my guy at the moment.
Oh, I would sell him in a heartbeat for 20, but he's actually worth 23.3 million pounds.
Yeah,
Which
okay.
kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
All right, Willie Bolly, I'll give you 10 million pounds for him. So.
Yeah. Sell.
Seeing his best days, he's not going to, unless we get an absolute stud next to him, he's not going to thrive with 4 at the back. He's probably going to miss a chunk of time with the Ivory Coast and the African Nations tournament this season. So he's gone.
Yeah, his value's 10.8.
Yeah.
So, okay, Connor Cody, I'll give you 15 million pounds for Connor Cody.
Keep and just based on the fact that he could do well with the right partner, even with the 4 at the back. He could suddenly find himself in that England team these next couple of weeks through injuries or what have you, and suddenly we've just been talking about those valuations going up after a good tournament. That could happen to him. I think he's certainly a good enough character that you need those types of guys certainly around when you've got a new coach. And unless Bruno's really just tied into his Portuguese connections and those guys, and he doesn't necessarily see the value of Cody, I'm gonna hold on 15, probably push to 20 if a Liverpool kind of boyhood dream club came calling because they've got issues at the back. I'd probably say 20-25 and we get good value there.
How about you, John?
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I wouldn't sell. It's
That's
just
how I feel too, yeah.
knowing who's going to replace him. That's the hard part.
Yeah, and I got in a little bit of a tiffle with some guys on the Wolves USA Facebook page because they're all ready to throw Cody out the door. And they're like, oh, Bally beside him. And I'm like, guys, he's the captain of the team. It goes a little bit more than, okay, yeah, he had some rough moments in the back 4, but he's the one that is directing everybody. And they're like, oh, they're tired of him yelling at everybody. Okay. Some guys are worth more than their FIFA rankings.
We've also got the homegrown quota and everything that factors into it as well. And if anything, Cody's a very viable member that fits of all that criteria as well. So it's just not black and white now when we're thinking about who goes and who comes in.
Yeah. What about Nelson Semedo for 25 million pounds? So you'd lose a little bit on your investment.
I'm just going to search his age. How old is he?
28.
Ooh. It's tough. It's tough.
I think he's still got 4 years left on his contract.
No, I don't. I say you got to give him one more season. I would hold off. I think he's worth more than that. I think you can judge. This season was rough for everyone.
Yeah, 27 turning 28 this year. So I'm on the fence with this one quite badly. And on one hand, I'm thinking again it could be a breakout season with this new coach and his new style, and it fits Semedo's game like a glove. But then the other one, I'm thinking, well, yeah, did we see enough last season that warrants that value? And 25 million, I'll probably say go on. I probably would.
That's what I think I would too. But his value right now is 21.75 pounds. It's gone down a lot over the last year. So that rough season definitely was up there. Now the big one. Adama. I will give you 30 million pounds for Adama.
No.
Yeah.
No way.
What about for 40 million?
Oh, 40 million. No.
It's got to be, for me, Diogo Jota money or above. 45 to 50 is what I'd be dealing Adama for. And that's probably come down 10 at the back end of the previous season when he hit the highest of heights. So I think that would be somewhat of a loss compared to what we could have gotten when he was 100% on his game and that partnership with Raul was the best we'd ever seen. Yeah.
And this is why I don't think he's going anywhere. His current value is only 30 million euros. So 23.3 million pounds. I think he's I don't think they're gonna get the big money that they'd want for Adama. So that's kind of why I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think a big deal there as well that's going to factor into it, that contract situation.
Mm-hmm.
Neves is in the better position length on his contract that's going to increase his value compared to Adama. I think there's at least a year or 18 months difference in that those two contracts. So I think that factors into it big time.
All right, so you guys have sold off Bali, and Paul has also said goodbye to Semedo. And Donker, you're holding on to.
Who knows Bruno Lage? They know each other.
Yeah, yeah. And meanwhile, John likes his team, except for Bali. He's ready to kick him.
Yeah, and he's played for Porto, but yeah, he just doesn't. At least with Cody, I think that maybe Cody can get better at playing with just a back four system, but I don't think Bowley can play in a back four system.
I don't either. I think Cody, if he gets that big enforcer guy beside him, they would make a good team, and I would be comfortable with that. But I just don't know what's out there. Everybody's when we're looking at the sexy transfer names, it's a lot of midfielders, it's a lot of wingers. Center back, it's not really much. Is there a guy in Portugal we should be paying attention to that's on the transfer market, John?
Defensively?
Yeah.
Porto has a couple players that played we had Diogo Leite, and he's pretty decent, but yeah,
he's young though, right?
He is young. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you want to play attacking football, right? It's funny when you think about it this way, but the most important player or players for an attacking football-minded team is the defense. And yeah, we've been talking a lot about attacking players, but we should be focusing on the defense if, in fact, Bruno Lage will be implementing his attack-minded football at Wolves. So. But I don't have any names for you.
If only there was a Portuguese guy who had the potential to be, I don't know, EPL Player of the Year that was available a couple of years ago for us to get.
Yeah, because he got brought up by Bruno Lage. Yeah, Ruben Diaz is spectacular. Anyone that's close to him, no. Sporting has some interesting players, I will say.
And I saw a lot of people online. I get there's a lot of favoritism towards Harry Kane. Oh, he led the league in goals and assists. He had this great year. I'm sorry, Ruben Diaz was the best player I saw this last year, and I didn't think it was particularly close. So I was fine with that decision.
For a guy coming from the Portuguese league to come into the EPL, into a team like Man City with so much pressure, and then to run that defense and the way he ran it like a leader, spectacular.
Well, back to one of our first shows, and we had the guys on from the Noisy Neighbours podcast, the Man City one over here, and we were talking about Diaz with high praise, and they were saying, yeah, but we've already got one of those guys with Laporte, and he'd been there stood for a good 2 or 3 years, and that was their salvation when it came to centre-back, and Diaz was like a nice option to have off the bench, or Nathan Ake. And that's completely turned around now. And yeah, Diaz has just proved himself over and over. So let's go and raid them and get Laporte, and we'll all be happy.
And I think Diaz is going to be a big factor come the Euros, which start this weekend. We're on the eve of it. There's a lot of Wolves over in that Portuguese side as well. And how do you think the Portuguese side is going to do coming out of the group of death at Euros?
With Portugal, you never know. I feel that we are one of the most talented teams in the Euro. I think they're not giving us enough attention, which is, hey, I'm happy with that. I definitely don't want the extra pressure on the Portuguese players. But if you look at the talent that we have, even Pepe had a phenomenal season in Champions League with Porto. He was extremely important for us to even reach the quarterfinals. And by the way, the team that we lost to by 1 goal won the Champions League. And it was extremely important against a bunch of different teams that we played in the Champions League. So yeah, Portugal, we definitely have a good squad. Obviously, people are always going to talk about Ronaldo. but you have so many other players to focus on. You have I think, second or third top goal scorer of the Bundesliga, a few goals behind Lewandowski, Andres Silva. You have obviously Ruben Neves. You have William Carvalho. You have Danilo, who's at PSG. I mean, you can go on. João Cancelo for Man City. Bernardo Silva, obviously, the regulars. There's just so many names to throw out there, and there's so many young players that can also make a difference, like Renato Sanchez. I think we're going to have a good season. I think we'll make it out of the group stage. Also, that's not saying much, just because I think the top 2, 3, third place teams actually advance.
Is that right, Paul? The top third place?
Yeah, they're on both sides of the bracket. I think that's what happens. I don't know the intricacies of it. It may be an expanded tournament this season, so this time around, so that's why it's done it with the third place factoring into it.
Yeah, Portugal won the Euro in 2016, coming out of the group in third place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's some trivia right there. People hate that. They're like, oh, you guys only made it out and honestly, I think it was strategy at one point, because we were playing against Hungary then, and it was tied, and both teams just stopped playing. Hungary was in first place, Portugal was in third, but they were like, hey, if we're in third place, we actually go to the left side we go to this side of the tournament, and we get the likes of Wales, and instead of playing France and so forth. So it was only, but yeah, I look, I think we have a great team. I'm expecting us to do well. I think, in my opinion, we're candidates to win the tournament. We are defending champions. So spotlight on France, obviously, but it's going to be interesting. I will say that group is going to get a lot of attention. Portugal versus Germany versus France versus Portugal. So many good games.
How about you, Paul? You're going to have to root for Jack Grealish.
Yeah, I can. Somewhat sadly, I can. When it comes to him in the EPL, I can't stand him. But take off the blinkers and everything. He's phenomenal, and he's been phenomenal in a very, really, even this season that they've done okay, but it's still an average Aston Villa team, and he's been standout for these past 2 seasons. When Villa play well, Grealish plays well, and he's done enough. I'll give him that. He's done enough performance-wise and form-wise that he's probably a starter now, which certainly towards the mid part of last season, got some injury troubles, questionable form. He's turned that around. I think it's Foden and him behind Kane as the best 11 at the moment.
I think I saw you guys were 8-1 odds to win. Do you think that's solid? Do you think that's overrating them a little bit much, or do you think they can take it home?
We're always overrated in the big tournaments when it comes to the bookmakers and what they level on us. The thing with England is we just said Harry Kane, Golden Boot winner in the EPL, Grealish, player of the season, Villa had great tie, Foden, fantastic. It's always been a great individual team, but not a team that gels and produces collectively. So I think that's going to be England's downfall, that for whatever reason, and this is going back years, it's a team of overachievers domestically that underachieve on the national scale. So I think that's the same again. We might do a decent run and get to a semi-final, but that's probably the closest I can see us going.
Yeah, one of the weaknesses that I think England has dealt with for such a long time, it's really affected England nationally, is the fact that all English players play in the EPL. And that's a big problem. And I think other teams, for example, that have players scattered around do way better because of that, because their players are able to adapt to the style of a game much better than an English player, for example, who's used to playing English football style, that style. Yeah, I think that's an issue. Great players in the season, but yeah, it's tough.
It's funny, we talk about Grealish, but to your point, John, one player who might have turned himself into a starter as well, who's done phenomenal, even though he's a Birmingham City Blue Nose, is Jude Bellingham, and he's 17, yet could be starting in centre mid for England in the Euros. Exactly that. He picked his move to go from the second tier of English football to Dortmund, who are renowned for that development of those types of players. He's flourished. He looks phenomenal. That's
Dortmund may be one of the best run clubs in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, those suckers make so much profit. They're going to make another 100 million off of Sancho here.
Yeah.
They made a boatload off Pulisic. Holland, I don't even. He's going to go for ungodly amount of money.
Yeah.
And then they have Gio Reyno and Bellington just sitting there.
Yeah.
Those are going to be 2 studs in 3 years that they're making 10 times their investment. So smart. So who should I root for, Portugal or England?
We need the help. Hey, England, they're playing home. They got an easier group. We'll take you as a fan, Josh. Honestly, we'll probably need you. So please.
That works. Although if Spain's involved, I still have to root for Adama. But I know how big the Spain-Portugal rivalry is, so I will root for Portugal in the game.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing if Neves, some of the Wolves players play. That will be interesting. It's going to be really Neves. That's the one player that comes to mind. Honestly, Pedro Neto, if not for injury, I think he's in that list. I think he would have been called up. Excellent player. One of my favorite players in the Wolves roster.
Yeah.
I haven't done my bracket in detail, but I think all of those 3 teams are on the same side. So there could be some very early clashes out of the group stages as well. So I love the Euros. Sometimes I think it's better than the World Cup just because you've got those quality teams. I think it has been diluted somewhat that we've got the likes of, and I'm going to slag them off, we've got the likes of Wales and Scotland and all these schmucks and North Macedonia. That I say all this, and I've probably just jinxed us to lose against Scotland now.
1-0 loss to Scotland
next week. So sorry, footballing gods. I didn't mean to offend the sweaty Scots so that they beat us next Friday. But once we get out of these group stages, it really opens up and you get some slobber knockers. So yeah, I like the Euros.
And I hope you guys got a chance to watch one of the best games of the year the other night as Team USA pulled out the 3-2 win over Mexico in thrilling fashion. Did either of you watch it? Paul, you watched it.
I didn't pay much attention to it to begin with, and then my house got quiet when everyone went to bed, so it was my turn to grab the remote, and I put it on, paying not too much attention to it in the second half of the second half, and it was a great game certainly for a neutral. From that point onwards, it had a little bit of everything. So yeah, it was good to watch for sure.
I think the referee needed a wheelbarrow to wheel out his cojones for some of the calls he was making. I was like, this guy may literally die coming out of the stadium. I hope he
had a little bit of a Mike Dean spotlight on himself, and the VAR calls and trotting over to the screen and sending the coach off for touching his shoulder and all of that. I think he did want to make himself the star at some points. But
yeah, because I've been to many a Team Mexico game, and what was happening in the stands and all that was pretty normal. So
do you think they forget to segregation when it comes to those games going forwards? That you got one section of the ground, or can they even police it here?
I don't think so, because there's so much done through StubHub and everything. You see it at like Oklahoma, Texas college football games, but even that, there's still some sprinkled around. So I don't know. They just got to get rid of homophobic chants, but even then, the Mexico fans were daring CONCACAF to do it. So yeah, super excited. Weston McKennie, future Wolves player. I'll be rooting for him to be a Wolves player when he's 40, I'm sure. So. And so wrapping up, John, you may get a bat phone call later this summer if some of these transfers come through. But in the meantime, how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, there's still my Twitter. So FC Porto NJ, that's my handle. I definitely haven't been on that frequently or enough, honestly, in the past few months, just because my life has been moving around pretty quickly. But yeah, I'll definitely be on that for the Euros and definitely to cover this whole transition period from new to Bruno. So it should be interesting.
Finally, our listeners survey remains ongoing. Why don't you tell us about it, Paul?
Yeah, I've kept that open, listeners, just to give opportunity for you to send in feedback directly to us, what you've made of Whole Lot of Wolves during this season. It's been our first go around, so we hope you like it. The feedback so far has certainly alluded to that. We've got an audience that we'd like to keep and maintain and improve upon going forwards. But I'm going to keep it on till we go around for season 2 when the next season comes around just to get your feedback, because we want it to be your show just as much as ours. So it's on our website, www.wholelotofwolves.com. There's a link to complete it there. It's also pinned as a post on our social profiles as well, so Twitter and Facebook. So go in there. It's 5 or 6 questions, 5 minutes tops. Just send us your feedback that way. That would be really useful. In the meantime, we're going to keep this schedule pretty flexible during the summer. So in terms of when the next episode will be, maybe there's some highlights from the Euros that we want to get together with and chat about, or if we have this flurry of transfer ins and outs that will give us something to chat about ahead of the fixture list coming out and getting excited for the upcoming season, then maybe we'll do another one before the start of August. But in the meantime, do all stay safe out there and healthy. We're getting close to putting this past 18 months behind us, I think, when it comes to getting back to normal post-pandemic. So nearly there. Now it's in Bruno we trust, and still in Fosun we trust when it comes to backing him with the squad. So let's see how that plans out over the summer. Up the Wolves.